Today, we're introducing some powerful updates in Invoke 5.8, designed to make AI workflows easier, more efficient, and more accessible for teams. First, we've completely redesigned the workflow builder. Now a no-code, drag-and-drop form builder that makes complex workflows simple. Whether you're a solo creator or working with a team, you can create structured, user-friendly forms to guide creative production without needing to dive into node-based UIs. Next, we're launching the Workflow Library, a curated collection of AI-powered workflows for concept art, 3D rendering, texturing, and post-production. In the Professional Edition, pre-built templates are ready to use right out of the box. For Community Edition users, you can download templates from invoke.com/workflow-library and import them directly. Now I'll pass you over to Kent, who's going to take you through the workflow updates and show you how to create and customize your own templates in the newest version of Invoke.
All right, so we're looking at nodes. We're looking at the workflows, right? For those of you who've never delved into this tab before or are new to the idea of nodes, this is not an uncommon experience. This isn't the first to do it, certainly won't be the last. But really what you're building is a pipeline. You're building a relationship between a sequence of steps, start to finish, that is going to produce an output. In Invoke, that is primarily going to be an image. We have a full workflow system. Everything that Invoke is built on sits kind of on top of this workflow engine. And it's what allows us to do all of the cool features that we have inside of the canvas. When you're using workflows, though, you're able to really decide, what do I want this specific tool to be? How do I want to design it in such a way that it's able to execute a task? And I want to do that in a way that's very standardized, very repeatable, and doesn't deviate too wildly from, what I expect this to operate with in order to complete a certain task. So in this case, we're looking at a bunch of noodles, right? People have already started commenting in the chat. It's a bunch of spaghetti, right? And this is not something that most people want to look at, right? So if you're working on a large team, whether that's marketers, whether that's artists, if it's people who aren't really super technical, they're not going to want to look at this. What we've done in the latest version of Invoke, or maybe the past few versions, were kind of the culmination of a few updates. We've made it really easy to build a workflow for other people to consume and also make that experience nice, right? So we have a new form builder. We also have the workflow library, which is going to be useful for organizing and managing those workflows. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to get started by actually building a workflow. Like I mentioned, we do have some templates. We've got some things that'll be posted in the link below this video. For those of you watching on YouTube, we'll have a link to all of the workflows that I'm about to show you. For those of you who don't see this in your default workflows list, do not despair. There will be a link and you can download the JSON and import it in and load it up. For those of you who are using the hosted product, these will be live as of today, I believe, in your workflow library. You'll be able to pull these up and get started with these. We'll talk a little bit about those in a moment, but I'm going to get started with just this one here. Now, we're looking at a bunch of noodles, bunch of spaghetti, right? We got a big old pipeline here. There's a bunch of stuff that's been already connected, but if I were to come in and want to use this as a user, I've got to find all of the areas that, aren't configured, aren't set up. I've got to find those and I've got to configure them. Always remember that if you are trying to figure out why you can't use a workflow, if you hover over the Invoke button, it's going to tell you. It's going to list out each of the specific fields that are missing an input or have an invalid input. And you can go through and find it that way. But I'm going to show you kind of how you would position this in a way that you can kind of like share it out with people. When you have a workflow that's built, you can take any field and drag the name of it over into the form builder, and that'll create this kind of like node field, right? Nice, easy to use. It's a form over here. You also can change everything about this. We can change the name of it, pick your style. You can change the description. This is going to change how the AI generates a picture. We can also turn off that description if we want to. There's a little bit of a nice little wrench icon that gives us some, on a node by node basis, different options for how it's displayed. In this case, we just have a show description. So I can turn that off. I can also organize things around this. So I can give myself a heading and text. This is my values rendering workflow. It's going to take an image with black and white values and turn it into a colored rendering. We're going to go ahead and take this image, which we need for this workflow, and drop it in over here as well. You can also click the plus icon if you don't want to drag it. So you can do the dragging thing, or you can hit the plus icon and that'll just add that to it. In this case, this is going to be fed into our values rendering engine. So I'll do values rendering, and we can, get rid of that description as well. Now, a nice enhancement in the recent workflow form builder is this little target icon, which is going to zoom to node. And if you hit that, it's going to take you right to that node, wherever that is. You'll also notice that when you hover over a node, it's going to highlight all of the fields that are related to it. So there's a quality of life features in here that really make it easy to use. Typically, what you're going to find is that there are a couple of fields you want to expose to end users. These are going to be the fields that are most commonly updated. In this case, we've got a positive prompt and we've got a negative prompt. What I typically recommend, if you're intending to share this with someone who's never used AI tools before, you're probably going to want to help them out with a prompt. So thinking about what is it exactly that we're trying to do? What model are we using? What prompt terms would this user not know to add? I always like to add a string join to the start of the workflow, and you can bake that kind of hidden secret sauce right on in there. So we've got, concept art, the best painterly artwork in the world, masterpiece, right? Whatever it is that gives your specific flavor, you can put that in underneath the user prompt, which we're going to expose here. We'll say user prompt. We can add this user prompt, and all of that the user really needs to worry about is this one field that says user prompt. We can turn that into a single line or multi-line text field. We can get rid of that description if we want it. We can also type in, remember to use the magic word in every prompt with please. If you ask nicely, maybe you'll get a better picture. You can put whatever you want in this text, but really the way to think about this is, what is the person who's going to consume this workflow? What are they going to need in order to be successful with this? We just want to make sure that we've given them enough context and given enough input. What I will also share is that if you are distributing this and you intend this to be shared with the wide community, one thing to be really thoughtful of are the things that you're building in the workflow that they may not have. So you might have a specific control model that they don't. And so you'll probably want to expose those things and just make them visible so that people can know they need to change those or update them. What you'll also notice is that in this specific workflow, we've got a nice little feature here that's been composited with a couple of nodes. We've got a bunch of math nodes. So we've got a control weight that chooses how strong we want that control to be. But rather than the 0 to 1 on a float scale, we've turned it from a big old float mess into a nice 0 to 5 control. What I've done is I fed that into a ceiling math node, which just says this is the ceiling, this is the floor, divides it by 100, and then allows you to kind of ingest that into the workflow here. How do they actually see what we've built from this form? How do we see the user version of this? This little eye icon up here in the top left is going to switch this to the viewer mode. This is the I'm a user and I don't want to see all the noodles. When you hit that, it'll take you directly to the kind of I'm using the workflow mode. And you'll see that everything that I put in is exactly where I put it. It's named and organized in the manner that I have composed in the form builder. And this makes it a lot easier for someone to come in and say, hey, this is a workflow that I want to use. I know exactly what I need to do. I need to type in a user prompt, pick your style, and throw a values rendering image in, right? Now I can use that. So I do have in my workflows library, which again, we're highlighting here for the first time, we've got our values rendering no form. That's the one that didn't have a form. I also have one that I pre-baked with a nice, really good form. So I'm going to open that one up. This one is on my shared workflows. Again, if you're on the hosted product and you're on a team, you're able to share the workflows out. And this one has been shared by me, and I'm going to load that up. And so when I load that, that's going to bring me back. And this one specifically has all of the kind of like niceties that I put in the form builder. You'll notice a few things that we didn't cover, things like containers that allow me to put things side by side. I've got nice little dividers here. It allows me to kind of come in and make things my secret special flavor, right? It makes it organized and makes it clean. In this case, I've got to pick a model. I've got to put my values rendering in. Maybe I'll do this one. And we've got a control to maybe we'll do 2. And then we'll say emerald pottery on a dirt floor, 3D CGI rendering, and we'll do a bunch of negative prompts. Now you could bake a bunch of this in. Remember, you can pre-bake all of the negative prompts in so your users don't have to think about it. You can make this purpose built to a specific style so that they don't even need to do anything like the photograph with dynamic lighting and all the sugar that you end up adding to a prompt to get it to do all the things you want. You don't have to do that. So sketch, blurry, unfinished, bad image, whatever, all our negative prompt terms, and then we can hit invoke and let it rip. You can always watch it execute if you want to as a user. And when you're triaging kind of like bugs and stuff like that from the workflow page itself, most folks don't know that you can actually see the output of each individual node by clicking into it and then hitting outputs. This will actually give you a preview of that node as it has most recently been executed. This is where you can really do a lot of debugging when you're building. In this case, we got our image kind of like emerald pottery that has been created. I used my values rendering and it looks like it did a pretty decent job on that and gave me some interesting shapes. So here's our lovely picture there. I'm going to clear my canvas layers and we're going to reset. We'll pick our custom Excel for now, just to use this. Let's do this. I'm going to take this in as a control layer. We're just using this as a template, so I'm just going to kind of like play around with it real quick. Oh, you know what? I gotta actually apply that transformation first. Boom. Filter to our line art, edge detection. All right, so we've got our control layer. We'll say it's our pottery template, okay? I know that there's probably not that many pottery artists out there that are creating this using AI, but it's happening. It'll probably get edited since we're doing the whole editing thing now. But this kid is just in a wild state. He's just screaming. He's just making a ton of noise. Sorry about that. He is a young child with too much sugar. Maybe the editor knows how to they've got like a filter that AI removes children from your videos. Maybe we'll see. I've created this template, it's my pottery template. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that I have a way to just automatically regionally prompt just the pottery. And maybe I want that to even be a reference image, right? I'm going to go through and I'm going to paint over the pottery. So now I've got a regional prompt, right? And I'm going to drop an image in there just to have it. So I can kind of tweak my settings. We'll do style. It's going to be precise. We've got all this stuff that we're doing. Step 1, when you're trying to use this to create a workflow template, you are not going to be able to create a template of your entire Canvas session, right? From start to finish, I did 75 in paint steps. That's not what you're automating, right? You're automating one invocation. You're automating one generation. To do that, to create and bake the workflow and shove it into the image, that's going to be the send to gallery button on the top left. You're going to have that. You're going to send it to the gallery. When you send it to the gallery, we're going to bake all of this stuff in as a workflow in that image. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to say pottery. It's best prompt ever. So we're going to do that. We're just going to let it do its thing. And you'll notice when you're generating to the gallery that you get a small yellow box that tells you that you're sending the generations to the gallery. That's so that you don't get lost and confused about what's happening. But if you hit the image viewer, you'll see that that's where it's generating. It's generating in your gallery right there. But we now have this image. And you'll notice that with this image, we have this small button at the top. It says load workflow. That's the magic button. That's going to load all of what we just did as a workflow. I'm going to hit load, and then we're going to play around with this. We do have some time. So maybe we'll just edit this new workflow together and talk about what we need to do to make sure that this becomes a template rather than just an exact replica of what we just generated. Because what we've saved into this image is the workflow that generated this image. But if we're making this a template, we're going to want to change some things. We're going to talk through those steps now and hit load. And we're now on the workflow tab with this workflow loaded in. You'll see that we've got a couple of things. All of the stuff has been kind of baked in. We've got our prompts over here. We have our noise. We have our control nets and the regional guidance over here. This node right here, this core metadata node, we're going to get rid of that. It's not going to be useful for us. We don't want that node. We're going to probably want to make a few changes to things. First things first, I didn't have a LoRa here, but if I did, we would see a LoRa connector for all the model stuff. So that's like one thing to note. A few things with SDXL specifically, you'll notice that we've got a prompt and a style box, and they both have the same prompt in them. That's because when SDXL was released, they released it with 2 clip models, which means you get 2 prompts and you have to put the prompt into both of those boxes. It's kind of a whole thing. We don't want our users to have to put the prompt in twice. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this up and we're going to have a string primitive. That string primitive is going to represent our prompt, and we're going to feed that into both of those fields. We'll do the same thing. I'll just copy paste the old Control C, Control V. We'll do the same thing over here. I may just copy this negative prompt upwards though, but we're going to feed that one in. Always good, clean in your workflow templating to update things based on what they are. So we've got a positive prompt and a negative prompt. And for the sake of having it, I'm going to bring it over to the form builder just so that we can see that as we're building some of this stuff. The other stuff there is fine. I'm just going to close those, and then we will shift click these nodes, all of these nodes, and bring them down. We're going to get this main model over here. We're going to fiddle with this stuff. Okay. So this is our regional guidance, and this regional guidance is going into the IP adapter node. In the mask session, we're masking the IP adapter. What we probably want to do is not expose the mask. We're not going to want the mask to be editable because people aren't going to upload a mask, but we do want the reference image to be editable. We want them to be able to do this image, right? And so we'll add that over here on the left-hand side, and now that becomes our pottery style reference image, right? We probably want some of these other things as well. We may want to expose the IP adapter model. We may want to expose the weight of this. I'll talk about that one in a second. And we'll just say that we want to keep the control net as is, but obviously you've got all the control weight stuff in the begin end step there as well. So we'll move to other things that we want to edit here. Noise. This has a fixed seed. So because we generated this image, it used one seed to generate that one image. And so now we have a fixed seed in this, even though we had random selected. What we're going to want to do if we're templatizing this is we're going to want to drag out our seed and type in random integer. And that is going to bring in a random variable. Always, whenever we generate, it's going to be a random seed. Just going to throw that random integer in. It's going to pop it in, and it's going to go. And this gives us that same randomness that we get in the canvas. There are some other things that we could expose, for example, steps, CFG scale, all of the other stuff, scheduler. We may want this to go to a specific board. This one went to our studio session board. We may want it to be auto. So it just automatically goes to whatever one we have selected, whatever you want there. But now we've got a workflow, and this is our pottery workflow. This is going to generate pottery based on our template, right? We have the ability to change our reference style image. We have the ability to change other stuff. Maybe we want to change our model. We'll just pull that in there just in case, right? How do we make this clean and organized? Because if I look at this right now, yuck, right? Ugh. It's not really clean. It's not really easy to use. We got to change some stuff, right? I'm going to throw in a container. I'm going to put my positive prompt and the reference image inside of that container, because what I want to do is I want to have like, this is my inputs section. This is where I'm putting the inputs that are going to drive this workflow. Everything else is kind of like, maybe you'll change it, but it's maybe more advanced. And so I may even go in and add a divider. Hell, I might add 2. And I'm going to put in a section called advanced. And I'm going to say, warning, this section might be advanced. Then they know, right? We're giving them a heads up. I will put a heading at the top. We're going to call this my pottery template. I'm going to hide our string value here because we don't need that description. I'm going to turn this into a multi-line text box. Put in the style you want the pottery to look like. We're just helping people out here, right? I'll add another container down here. And I'm just going to put this pottery style reference, put in the node here, put reference style strength. This is where things can get kind of funky, right? Like, okay, reference style strength, right? 1,000, right? Whoa, that's way too high, right? People can't go there. This is where it's useful to say, like, put 0 to 1. There is going to be a feature released in the next week or so that'll allow you to set a constraint here. You'll be able to put a min max that'll actually put guardrails on that without you having to do any work on the workflow side. You'll be able to set that min max directly in this UI and kind of have that as a variable there. It's not there right now, but it is coming. And you can also turn this into a slider. I'm going to turn this back down to 0.55. And we'll say, choose a number that feels right, you. Now we'll look back. I got my pottery template. I got a positive prompt. It's resizable. Got a reference image that it tells me to put the style I want. I got a reference style strength. Obviously, I'd probably put a slider in there if I were really making this for somebody, but we'll just leave it as is for now. Then we got the advanced section. Maybe I want to have 2 versions of this, right? So I'm going to save this one as pottery template advanced. If you save this to the project, you're on the hosted version, you're saving it to the project, everyone on the project is going to be able to see it. You're sharing it with them, right? So this is actually available in your project workflow list. If you don't save it to the project, it's saving it to your private list. So if you want to share it out, put it there. This is going to be our advanced pottery template. I'm going to save that as that. But then get this, I'm going to delete out the advanced stuff. I'm going to delete those fields out, bada bing, bada boom. And I'm going to save that workflow as, we'll say easy. Now we've done it. It's the easy pottery template. We're great. We're good to go. Now we got an easy version and an advanced version. Feeling great about that. We're feeling so good. The people are going to be able to find it. They're going to love it. They open the workflow library. They hit their workflows. They hit shared. And now they've got an advanced pottery template and an easy pottery template. But wait, Kent, there's an empty image there. How do I edit that thumbnail? Because it's going to drive me crazy, right? Don't worry. I got you. Right? So we're going to load up our advanced template because I'm advanced. We're going to pull that back up. I'm going to edit that workflow. I'm going to go to the details tab of that workflow, and I can load the thumbnail there. I can say, this is my pottery image, right? I can also put some stuff like, what version is it? It's version 3.0, because the best place to start is always 3. Author, Kent, hipster username. Contact, don't. Tags, SDXL. Control net, fun, pottery stuff. This will help you generate great pottery images. So I'm going to save that. And now what we'll see is this will help you generate great pottery images. If I had loaded a thumbnail, it would be there. You get the idea, right? We've got so much power, so much control. Now the question is, will it work? We're going to find out. I'm going to get an image, a reference image. Does anyone have any suggestions of what type of pottery we should make? Does anyone have a style? Lava image. Go back to my view tab. I'm going to paste that in. Pasted that in. I'm going to drag that over as my reference image. I'm going to say lava pottery, high quality, vibrant, dynamic, key lighting. Something like that, right? Reference style 0.55, that's injecting it right on in. And you know what? We're just going to hit invoke and see, will it blend? Do the nodes blend? Is it going to make an image for us? My guess is probably. Whoa. How easy was that to make lava pottery, huh? Simple and easy. And they're glowing from the inside. That's the best. And I think that's the end of today's session. But some people have said that today is one of their most favorite sessions ever. It's really, really powerful. If you will build this and share templates with your team, using it in conjunction with the canvas can really accelerate your process. We're excited to see what you do with it. Make sure to share feedback and thoughts as you get using it. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye.